that weren't available in states like Indiana back in 1973. But thanks to this monumentally historic ruling that we've seen today, we now have the opportunity as a state to come together as a loving and compassionate state to really revisit Indiana's abortion laws and take a look at them. We do anticipate that will happen in the special session that starts July 6th here in Indiana. We will certainly be looking for our legislature to lead the way in Indiana. And we believe this is just it's a great opportunity to come together collectively and just to affirm that every life has value, including every unborn child's life. But at the same time, and this is critical, at the same time that we must be a state that shows support and care for pregnant mothers choosing life in Indiana. That's a key element. Those are Hoosier values. And that's a key element of both caring for babies and caring for moms that we think is critical at this moment. So we're excited about the victory. We're excited about the new opportunities coming up in the special session. And we're just looking forward to working with our state legislature. And I can also say that today's ruling, what it's doing at its core, it's returning this issue squarely back into the hands of the people. This is no longer a time since 1973 till today when non-elected judges, basically federal judges, were telling every state, including Indiana, what its abortion policy must be. And now after this ruling today, the court has said it's going back to the states. Every state can decide so the people's voices can be heard. And that's exactly what we expect to see happen at the State House during the special session that starts July 6th. So that's our quick take on everything. And I'm glad to field any questions that you may have.
Guys, if you have questions, please just hit the raise your hand button there on the reactions button on your toolbar.
Recording stopped.
Okay, we're going to start here with Brandon Smith.
Hey, Mike, this is Brandon Smith from Indiana Public Broadcasting. I have a couple of questions. The first is obviously a big question I think that everybody's wondering now is how far Indiana lawmakers will go. I think there's an expectation that they will significantly curtail abortion rights, but I think the question that many people are wondering is, and so what I'll ask you is first, should there be exceptions for cases in which there's rape, incest, or the life of the pregnant person is at risk?
Well, of course, the Indiana legislature will address all of those issues. And you may be surprised to know that the incidents of rape, for example, comprise 1% of the total of abortions. And that's not a number that we come up with. That's a number that comes from women who have had abortions. So we expect that will be a major discussion point with the Indiana General Assembly. But our role in facilitating discussion on our end with that will be to affirm that that discussion needs to be happening with love and compassion, not just throwing out that as an issue that's out there that is often put out there and it's very explosive and so forth. But there needs to be a loving and compassionate discussion, and we expect that to happen in the legislature on this. And of course, our stance has always been that every life, every Hoosier deserves to be born, regardless of the means of someone's conception. So with that, as the legislature addresses this, we are encouraging them to address this topic with understanding the numbers involved. Let's have a realistic and truthful discussion on it, because we know the vast majority of abortions are done for birth control reasons. So let's have that discussion on the real numbers of this, but let's also have that discussion not inflamed with rhetoric that normally surrounds this, but with a loving and compassionate attitude, and also with the recognition that every life is valuable.
And then my follow-up, or my second question real quick before we get to others was, you talked about needing to provide support and care for pregnant mothers. Just a couple of years ago, the Indiana legislature refused to even provide basic workplace accommodations for pregnant workers. Why should Hoosiers expect that lawmakers will do anything to actually help pregnant people?
Yeah, Indiana actually has some great programs that help pregnant mothers. So for example, I think it's My Healthy Baby Indiana is one program, the Indiana Pregnancy and Parenting Support Program that I believe at this point has served over 90,000 women at no cost to the women who come to the centers. But also in addition to the state programs, we've identified over 200 organizations across Indiana that They're either pregnancy resource centers that provides free care and support for women, and not only for women, like during the actual, are you pregnant or not pregnant? It's much broader than that. The pregnancy centers in Indiana offer, in most cases, support for mom and baby through baby's first year. And in some ways, in fact, one center that I recently spoke to, they actually provide care through baby's 5th birthday. So it's a very holistic approach. And I think that what we're talking about is not only what is the government solution to it, and again, Indiana does have some really good programs. Their infant mortality program is another one. But when we expand that out and look at all the programs, Indiana has quite a lot that's already going, but this needs to be a partnership approach as the entire state looks at this. And we shouldn't look at this as just what can government do to help pregnant mothers. This is really a call for Hoosiers to step up across the board. So private ministries, churches, other organizations can step in the gap there where those exist. We can always do better, and that's going to be part of the discussion. There's a lot of different things that we think the state can do. We'll be floating some of those ideas when we get to that point. But I would just say there's a lot of good programs out there for Indiana right now, but that doesn't mean there won't be a lot of discussion on what we could do better as a state. So this really adds that incentive to start having those discussions with, maybe things that didn't work in the past. Do they work now? Can we bring people together in consensus on that? So that's what we look forward to working with the legislature on.
Tom Davies.
Hi, this is Tom Davies from the Associated Press. Do you think Indiana should go the route that like Texas did, allowing private lawsuits to enforce the law? Other states have gone as far as, discussing prosecuting women who leave to go to other states to seek abortions. Do you think that fits in with the stance you're talking here about showing support and compassion for women? Just, what form do you think Indiana lawmakers should take on that?
Well, I'll be very clear. We are not supportive of criminalizing women. We've always viewed women and babies as victims in abortion. So that clearly is our position on that. The Texas law, that's a question that the Texas law is different. The Texas law was the Texas Heartbeat Act. They did have civil remedy in it, but it was civil remedy only. There were no criminal penalties involved with that. And the Texas Heartbeat Act also left roughly 6 weeks of abortion still available in that state under that act. So there's a lot of different nuances in Texas that would not be directly applicable to the state of Indiana. We do think the legislature should explore some type of civil action that private citizens can take in the state of Indiana, but I expect that to be a discussion that would be a lot different than the law, for example, that was passed in Texas.
Why allow civil enforcement? Doesn't that get into women who have miscarriages being forced to defend themselves, and doctors who make decisions, to save the life of a mother? Do you think that should be covered by Indiana law as well? How do you, get into, saving the life of the mother issue?
Right. Well, that's something that the Indiana General Assembly will look at that in detail. So we would expect whatever law that the draft law that surfaces, when we see that law, when the legislature sees that law, that they will look at that very clearly to make sure there's not an abuse of any type of civil powers. So again, that would be in the details. We haven't seen those details yet. We've not seen a draft. So I would expect the Indiana General Assembly to take a close look at that. That's not something that would be done flippantly, and it's not something that would be done, in a view of trying to harm pregnant women in the state of Indiana. So I think it would be a very practical approach at how the legislature looks at that.
Okay, next we have Libby.
Okay, hey, I'm Libby Cunningham with the News and Tribune down here in Clark and Floyd counties. Indiana schools, they aren't required to teach any type of sexual education to teenagers. Do you think the state should start maybe implementing that, especially if the legislature does choose to ban abortion outright here in a few weeks as a means of prevention? Is that something that Indiana Right to Life would like to see? Maybe more sexual education, any type of contraceptives being more available to especially our youth?
Well, the Indiana General Assembly, again, will take that into account with whatever discussions they have on what a new law is. I can tell you that it's critically important that information about the development of life in the womb is presented in the classroom as well. That's actually something that we have tried many times in the past to bring forward into public education and have been unsuccessful to that. So I know we will revisit that, and the legislature will be looking at all the different issues related to this as they move into actually drafting language.
And you had also mentioned that you think the state will need to look into different programs or ways that they can help pregnant people if they do ban abortion outright. I mean, do you have any ideas of what programs could be good that they could implement to, really support people financially, even past year 5? It costs a lot of money. We all have families. We know it costs a lot of money. Do you think there are any methods or any plans that you all are going to suggest to them put into place to help people if they are pregnant?
We have some discussions on various different things that would be very helpful to pregnant women, as well as adoptive families, and as well as families in general. And that's actually a great tie-in to the fact that this special session is really being called, the original intent of the session, not even knowing what the court ruling was to talk about a relief for Hoosiers who are facing really financial crisis situations right now, from the gas pump to the grocery store and everything down the line. And that's affecting families, it's affecting pregnant moms. So it's affecting everybody in Indiana. So it's actually a great opportunity during this special session to have that loving and compassionate discussion on how can we best assist pregnant mothers and families in conjunction with this other economic relief type of discussion that's happening. So I think that's a good mesh with the session.
Hey, Brandon, you have one additional question?
Yeah, as long as I've not taken a spot from anybody else, but I don't see anybody else's hand raised. Mike, my other question was Justice Thomas today, in his concurring opinion, pointed to other decisions of the Supreme Court that he thinks should be revisited, notably among them a decision that allows or that legalized access to contraception. Does Indiana Right to Life think that Indiana should, if possible, ban access to contraception?
Well, we'll be very clear about this. Anything that its intended and purposeful action is to create an abortion after fertilization occurred is clearly being used as an abortifacient, and we oppose that. Something that's not intended for that use is a true contraceptive, which prevents conception from happening, and that's something that we've always stayed neutral on that. And I must also add to that, I've not read Justice Thomas's writings yet. In fact, I've been in briefings since this came out, like a lot of folks that I know, and I've yet to sit down and look at the actual full discussion, but listening to those attorneys that have reviewed it and had some good briefings on it. So looking forward to reading Justice Thomas's writings on this.
Okay, everyone, that concludes our news briefing here. If you have any other questions, please do follow up at media@protectinglife.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.